Hi, this is Craig Stocks. I did a photo shoot recently for my website, Playing Peoria, at www.playingpeoria.com. The photo was featuring local photo artists Doug and Eileen Leunig. Now, one of the techniques that Doug and Eileen use quite a bit is a technique called light painting, and you can see more examples of that on their website at purposedrivenart.org. But what you do with light painting is you light the scene in pieces using generally a fairly high-powered flashlight. And in this example, what they had done was set the camera on a tripod, and in the old days of film, you would do one very long exposure, maybe a 30-minute exposure even, and during that time you would scamper about in the scene, shining your flashlight or an electronic flash on different pieces of this scene so you can illuminate a large scene, but you illuminate it just in pieces. In the digital world, we do that by taking separate frames. In each frame, they illuminate just one piece, and Doug and Eileen typically work with a flashlight rather than an electronic flash. But they would illuminate the different elements of the scene and then combine those in Photoshop. And I wanted to give a little bit more insight into how that work takes place in Photoshop, because I think a lot of people understand conceptually that you're taking pieces from different sections of a photo, but it helps, I think, to see the whole thing in context. Now, on their website, if you go to page 2, at least currently, the photo that we did, or the photo that they did when I took their picture, is right here on the bottom right of page 2. So this is the light painting that they were doing. It's kind of an upper end of Detweiler Park. And for Playing Peoria, I wanted to do a photo of them doing a light painting. So it's a light painting style photo, but it's a photo of them. So my finished photo looks like this. So this is the scene. This is where they had the camera set up using these two tree branches from a fallen tree as a key framing element. But for my photo, I wanted to show them in the scene. So this is a light painting style photo of Doug and Eileen Leunig. And the photo is made up of many different layers that are composited, but I wanted to show a simple example of how that compositing takes place in Photoshop. So here are 5 sample frames from around 300 frames that we shot during this period. And on the background layer, over on the right-hand side, we've got what's called the layer stack in Photoshop. And there are 5 separate layers here. And you can think of these as photos stacked one on top of the other. And if right now we're only seeing the one on the bottom, that's one that's called background. If I turn on the layer above it, which would be equivalent to laying another photo on top of this one, well, then you only see the photo that you just laid on top. And it's the same scene, camera's in the same position on a tripod, but there's different light in the scene. In this case, it looks like there's a light back here lighting up the foliage of the trees in the background. Here's a third frame. Here we have light over on the right-hand side. In this fourth frame, we have light mostly on these foreground tree branches and on the tripod. And there's some streaks here where you can see the flashlight that probably Doug was moving around at the time. And then lastly, I have this scene that shows different parts of the leaves illuminated. So let me turn these off and we'll start at the bottom. If I'm using this background layer as kind of my base layer because I like the way it's framed, it's dark, and I like having Eileen's image over here at the tripod. If I just turn on, as we saw earlier, if I just turn on the layer above it, it replaces what we can see on that from the first image. And what we really want to do is combine the two, and ideally what we want is just the bright areas of this layer 1 to replace the dark areas on the background layer. And we can do that real easily in Photoshop using what's called a blending mode. And right now this is just in normal blending mode, and it just replaces what's underneath it. If I change the blending mode to a special mode called Lighten, what that will do is tell Photoshop to use just the lighter portions of the top layer So any place where the image is brighter in the top layer, we'll see that. Otherwise, we'll see through the darker areas and see the bottom layer. So when I switch the mode, almost like magic, we now have those two layers combined. I'll turn layer 1 on and off. There it is without the addition, and there it is just by adding layer 1 in Lighten blending mode. If I do the same thing then with layer 2, we can turn it on, and again go to Lighten blending mode, and we now have a combination of 3 layers, but we're also starting to pick up this ghost image of Eileen behind the first image. Yeah, maybe we like that and maybe we don't, but let's say we don't like it. We can just simply rectify that problem by taking the eraser tool and just erase her out of that image so she's not there anymore on layer 2, and now we have a fairly clean image. If I turn on layer 3, now this is the one that's real bright. Again, we have a little bit of a ghost here. We may want to use the eraser again to take out that part and the streaks. Again, I need to change to Lighten blending mode. Now we may think that this is a little bit too bright. The branches here are almost overexposed, and an easy way to resolve that is just to lower the opacity of this layer so that it blends in a little bit better and starts to show more of the texture. And then lastly, we'll turn on layer 4. Again, go to Lighten blending mode, and again we might want to erase the extra Eileen in the picture. So that's kind of a quick demonstration of how you might combine 5 different layers, taking elements from each one of the layers and combining them to give a finished image. In the image that is posted on the website on Playing Peoria, it's the same process, it's the same technique, it's just much more involved with many more layers going into the composite. So I thought you might enjoy that look behind the scenes in how a light painting is put together in Photoshop. You can read more on my website at craigstocksarts.com, and you can read about Doug and Eileen Leunig on Playing Peoria at www.playingpeoria.com, and also, of course, check out their website at purposedrivenart.org. Thanks, and have a nice day.